In this lecture, we're going to be exploring which tarot decks are best for multiple choice tarot readings. Now, as many of you know, I often will use a Rider-Waite deck when I am teaching my courses, and usually it is okay if you have a completely different deck because the themes do translate across. However, I wanted to add a special little lecture for this particular course because when it comes to doing multiple choice readings, if you have a different deck, then there's just a few little extra strategies you need to consider to make sure that you are getting the most out of this course and able to translate the differences. So for me, always, the deck that you should use with any course or in any situation is the one you most feel comfortable with. And personally and professionally, I use a lot of different decks because I'm madly in love with the tarot. So I go through different stages with different decks. But I teach with the Rider-Waite because it is the most common deck that people will end up buying and using. And the majority of decks that are made that are not Rider-Waite are based on the Rider-Waite structure. So it's the easiest to translate. Now, if you don't have the Rider-Waite deck or you don't resonate with Rider-Waite, that is totally okay. Just consider the Rider-Waite deck a blueprint, and the themes that come through in the interpretations are the ones that most modern decks are based on. However, as I mentioned, there are important things to check before doing multiple choice readings when you have a different deck, because this will impact upon how you are communicating information to your client or if you are reading for yourself. The first question to ask yourself, is my deck Rider-Waite structured or Crowley-Thoth structured? Please don't worry if this sounds confusing, I'm going to explain it for you. So the key differences between the two different structures is the Strength card in the Rider-Waite deck is card 8 of the Major Arcana and Justice is card 11. If you have a Thoth-based deck, this will be reversed, so they're swapped around. So the card that represents the themes of Strength will be card 11 and the card that represents the themes of Justice will be card 8. Now you might ask, well, how will I know? Go through your deck until you get to card 8 of the Major Arcana. And for those of you who don't know, that will usually be at the top in those Roman numerals as the V and the 3 1s. If your card has an image of scales, which represent the scales of justice or justice, then it is Thoth-based. If it features a lion or a similar image, then it is Rider-Waite-based. If you are not sure, you can post this on the Q&A board and I can confirm for you. But again, if it is, you don't need to worry because you just need to swap them around. So it's not going to make a big difference for you. You just need to make sure you always take this into account when you're doing the highest versus low and the negative versus positive, because obviously they're going to be a little bit different to how I explain them in this course. Some of the other difference can include name changes in the Major Arcana, so Justice is Adjustment and Magician is the Magus, and this is across many different decks, by the way. They're not always consistently called what they're called in the Rider-Waite, even if they are Rider-Waite based. If you do have a Thoth deck, then the courts are presented different to Rider-Waite. So the page is the princess, the knight is the prince, the queen remains the same, and the king in the Rider-Waite is the knight in the Thoth deck. But again, your deck might be completely different and that's okay. You just have to remember the hierarchy, especially in the high versus low. Thoth also uses discs to represent pentacles, and you may even find in your own deck that there are different interpretations for the suits. So they might be called rods, or they might be called batons, or they might be called different suits. So just make sure you're aware of that as well. I have more translating tips and information in your resources PDF attached to this course, or in your Google Docs in your final section. And for those of you who are using the Marseille Tarot, I'm also going to explore the differences of that in those resources as well. If you are using one of the Radley Valentine based decks, like the Archangel Power Tarot cards or something similar, this has the Thoth structure, so you'll just need to revert those 2 cards, and you might need to just take a little bit of time to convert the suits. So for example, Archangel Michael represents the entire sword suit, so you'll just need to remember that as you're working through the course. An extra tip that I've found with some of my students is to learn the colours and convert them, because that's often easier to remember and convert in your head. So for example, Archangel Michael's the colour of blue, so if you just remember that blue is swords, then you can easily convert that over. Please note, oracle cards are really not suitable for this course because there's no structure in the numbers, so the hierarchy isn't there, and the positive versus negative can become too confusing. Mostly because all of the cards in oracle cards tend to be positive. The one exception to this is John Holland's Psychic Tarot Oracle. This works very well with multiple choice readings. You just need to remember to spend some time translating those colours and suits, so a little bit like what I talked before with the Archangel Power Tarot deck, because the colours are represented as suits. So for example, purple equals the wands, so just make that little note. There are no courts or tens. The major arcana have different names. However, they do translate to the same theme as the Rider-Waite, and it's important to make sure you remove the chakra cards before beginning multiple choice readings. So up next, we're going to learn how to shuffle for multiple choice readings and how to bless your deck. And again, if you're looking for more information about how to translate your deck, if you have a different one to the Rider-Waite, you can check the PDF attached to this lecture or the Google Docs that are in your final section of this course. I'll see you in the next lecture.